Hey everybody, welcome back to Kelly Barlow Creations, Crafting on a Budget. Today's video, I'm going for it. I am gonna try my best to do a tutorial and show you how to crochet a hat. I have had so many requests for this since I posted my City of Hope video. People saying that it looks too hard, saying that the link that I left for them is too advanced, and people just simply asking me, please Kelly, would you try and do this, because I know that you can simplify this. And in this case, I think you might have a little bit more faith in me than I have in myself in this instance. But you know what? I'm up for the challenge, and if I'm challenging you to make a hat, then I'm gonna challenge myself to make this tutorial and see if I can show you an easy way to do this, because you know, it really is not that hard, I promise you. So these are items that I keep on a regular basis that I went and picked up yesterday from Walmart, because a lot of my items are between Kayla and I can't find them all. So I decided to make my kit up again and have it fully stocked. And these are the items that I always keep in my crochet bag. You can buy this 8-piece set of crochet hooks for $7 at Walmart. And the sizes range from what I believe is 6.5 millimeters all the way down to 3.125. The hooks that I use the most are this darker blue 6.5 millimeter hook, this 5.7 millimeter hook, and I also use this 5.25. Those are the three that I use the most. Another one of my favorite hooks is this 10 millimeter hook. This is a huge hook. It's super easy to work with, and this is one that I use with thicker yarn. And it's usually the homespun yarn that I use this for. You'll also need some of these crochet needles to sew in your ends. For today's video, I'm gonna be using this Charisma yarn, and it tells you what size hook works best with this yarn. It says here that an 8 millimeter hook works best with it. I won't be using 8 millimeter. I've used this yarn before, and I've used it with this 6.5 millimeter hook. This yarn is 100% acrylic. And so let's get started with this tutorial, and let me show you really how easy it is to make a hat. Hopefully I can show you how easy it is. When I start a project, I like to take the end that's in the middle of the skein. Did I say that right? The skein in the middle of the yarn. How about that? This is where you're gonna see Kayla in me, because it's just a lot easier to pull your yarn from the middle than it is to like constantly be rolling your yarn. We're gonna start this project off by doing what's called a chain. And I like to chain 6. And to start a chain off, we're gonna take and make a slip knot. And so the way I've always been taught to make a slip knot is to just take your yarn and kind of do this with it. So it crosses. You've got your tail here, and you're just gonna take and pull the yarn through the hoop. And that is where we will put our hook. This was always an issue for Kayla, how to hold the yarn. So the only way I knew to teach her was to place the yarn flat down, put your hand down, take your crochet hook and lay it across your hand like so. So you've got the yarn going under your fingers and across your fingers. Then take and just slide the yarn in between your ring finger and your middle finger, just like this. Then when you lift up your crochet hook, you're gonna take your middle finger and your thumb and hold the knot of your slip knot. You're just gonna curl your baby finger and your ring finger around the yarn. And that's how Kayla and I hold our yarn. It's different for everybody. So now I'm ready to do a chain 6. So how are we gonna chain 6? We've got our crochet hook in our slip knot here, and we are going to take and wrap our crochet hook around the yarn. And we're gonna twist it, and we're gonna pull it through the slip knot, giving us this. That's a chain 1. So then we're gonna do it again. We're gonna take our hook, we're gonna wrap it around the yarn, and we're gonna pull it through the next loop, giving us a chain 2. We're gonna take wrap our hook around the yarn again. We're gonna pull it through the hoop. We're gonna take our hook, wrap it around the yarn again, and pull it through the hoop, chain 5. And the last time, wrap our hook around the yarn again, pull it through the hoop, and now we've just made a chain 6. And as you're crocheting, you're gonna keep control of the tension with your middle finger and your thumb here by holding your yarn. So now we've done our chain 6. And you can see that it looks like a braid. This here is our 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So now what we're gonna do is take the hook and we're gonna slide it through the very first chain that we did because it looks like a braid. So this is one side of the braid, leaving us 2 hoops on our hook. I'm gonna hold the bottom of the chain because now it looks like a U on your hook. I'm gonna take my hook, I'm gonna wrap it around my yarn, and I'm gonna pull it through both hoops, giving us a circle. So now you've just started the top of your beanie. For this project, I'm gonna be doing a double crochet. So we're gonna take our hook, we're gonna wrap it around our yarn, and we're gonna pull it through the hoop. And we're doing a chain 2, so we need to do one more, wrapping our hook around our yarn. We're gonna pull it through the hoop. For this project, I'm gonna be using a double crochet stitch. I'm gonna take my hook, I'm gonna wrap it around my yarn, and now this hoop that we just made down here, we're gonna stick our hook through that hole, and we are gonna come up through the bottom of the hole here and grab the yarn. And we're gonna pull the yarn through the back of that hole, giving us 3 loops on our hook. I'm gonna take my hook, I'm gonna wrap it around the yarn, and I'm gonna pull it through 2 of those loops, leaving us with 2. I'm gonna take my hook, wrap it around the yarn again, and pull it through those 2 hoops, leaving us with 1. And we have just done a double crochet. I'm gonna be putting 12 double crochet stitches in this hole. So we've done 2. I'm gonna take my hook, wrap it around the yarn. We're gonna go through the hole, down through the hole, grab the yarn, pull the yarn through the hole, giving us 3. We're gonna wrap our hook around the yarn again, pull it through 2. We're gonna wrap our hook around the yarn again and pull it through the last 2, leaving us with 1. Now we're on to our 4th. We're gonna wrap our hook around the yarn. We're gonna put it down through the hole, grab the yarn, pull the yarn up through the hole, giving us 3. We're gonna wrap the yarn around our hook, pull it through 2, wrap the yarn around the hook, and pull it through the last 2. So now we've got 4 double crochets. Now doing our 5th double crochet. We're gonna wrap the hook around the yarn. We're gonna go down through the hole. We're gonna grab the yarn, pulling it up through the hole, giving us 3. We're gonna take the hook, wrap it around the yarn again, pull it through 2. Take the hook, wrap it around the yarn again, and pull it through 2 more. On to the 6th. Wrap our hook around the yarn, put it down through the hole, grab the yarn, pull it up through the hole, giving us 3. Wrap the hook around the yarn, pulling it through 2. Wrap the hook around the yarn, pulling it through the last 2. Now we're doing the 7th. Wrap the hook around the yarn, put it down through the hole, grab the yarn, pull it up through the hole, giving us 3. Wrap the hook around the yarn, pull it through 2. Wrap the hook around the yarn and pull it through the last 2. 8. We've got our chain 2, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. Now we need to join our ring together, and right here is our first chain 2. So we're gonna take our hook And you can see up here that it kind of looks like a braid and there's 2 pieces of yarn here. We're gonna slide our hook through both those pieces of yarn. We're gonna wrap our hook around the yarn and we're gonna pull it through that and through our hoop. And that closes off our first round. I'm gonna chain 2 again to start the second row off by wrapping the hook around the yarn, pulling it through, wrapping the hook around the yarn again and pulling it through the hoop again. That gives us a chain 2. You can see here at the bottom of the chain 2, this is where your first stitch is gonna go. So we're gonna take, again, wrap our hook around the yarn. Now we're gonna put it through our stitch, wrapping our hook around the yarn, pulling it up through the stitch, giving us 3. Wrapping our hook around the yarn again, pulling it through 2. Wrapping the hook around the yarn again, pulling it through 2 more. We've got a total of 12 stitches that go around this first row. So now what we're gonna do is we are gonna put 2 double crochet stitches in each of those 12 stitches, giving us 24 stitches in this next row. And that's called an increase row. When you do 2 stitches in a stitch, that's considered an increase. I've done our first 2, and now here is our second stitch, here's our third stitch, here's our 4th stitch, and so on. And that's what we'll be putting 2 double crochets into for this row. Wrapping our hook around our yarn, we're gonna push through the second stitch. Coming through the bottom, we're gonna wrap our hook around our yarn, pull the yarn through the stitch, giving us 3. Wrapping the yarn around our hook, pulling it through 2. Wrapping the hook around the yarn and pulling it through 2 more. Wrapping the hook around the yarn, we're gonna go for our second double crochet in this stitch, pushing it through the stitch, grabbing our yarn, pulling it up through the stitch, giving us 3, wrapping the hook around the yarn, pulling it through 2, wrapping the hook around the yarn and pulling it through 2 again. Here's our next stitch right here, wrapping the yarn, putting it through the stitch, coming up, grabbing the yarn and pulling it through the stitch, giving us 3, wrapping and pulling through 2, wrapping and pulling through 2 more. We're gonna put 1 more in this stitch, wrapping our yarn, putting it through the stitch, grabbing our yarn, pulling it up through the stitch, giving us 3, wrapping our yarn, pulling it through 2, wrapping the yarn, pulling it through 2 again. We're gonna do this all the way around this row, putting 2 double crochets in each stitch, giving us a total of 24. You can see here that we have come to the end of our row. This here is our last 2 double crochets that we put in, and this here is our chain 2 that we started the row with. I'm gonna take my hook and I'm gonna put it through the top of that chain 2. I'm gonna wrap my hook around the yarn and I'm gonna pull it through the chain 2 and through my hoop, finishing off our row. So now we're ready for our third row. We're gonna start it off again with the chain 2. So now at the base of this chain 2 is where we are gonna put our first double crochet for this row. Wrapping it, pushing it through, pulling the yarn up through the stitch, giving us 3, wrapping our yarn, pulling it through 2, wrapping our yarn, pulling it through 2 again. Now for this row, I won't be increasing on every stitch. We're gonna do an increase on every other stitch. So on this next stitch, we're gonna just do 1 double crochet. I just did the 1 double crochet in this stitch. In this next stitch, I'm gonna do 2 double crochets, which is our increase. Wrapping our yarn, putting it through the stitch, grabbing the yarn, pulling it through, giving us 3, wrapping the yarn, pulling it through 2, wrapping the yarn, pulling it through 2. We need 1 more in this stitch. Wrapping our yarn, putting our hook through our stitch, grabbing the yarn, pulling it up through the stitch, giving us 3, wrapping, pulling through 2, wrapping, pulling through 2. We've just done our increase. Now we're going to do a single double crochet in this next stitch. Our next stitch is an increase stitch, so 2 double crochets in this next stitch. One double crochet in the next stitch. Two double crochets in the next stitch, which is our increase. One double crochet in the next stitch. Two double crochets in the next stitch, which is our increase. One double crochet in the next. Two double crochets in the next, which is our increase. One in the next. Two in the next, our increase. One in the next. Two in the next, which is our increase. One in the next. Two in the next, our increase. One in the next. And two in the next for our increase. One in the next. And you can see here that we are coming to the end of our row. We've got one stitch left, which will be our increase. You always want to try and end your row off on an increase until you're done increasing what is going to be the crown of your beanie. And so we are ending our row on an increase. You can see here that our chain 2 is here. So we're gonna slip our hook through the top of our chain 2, grabbing our yarn and pulling it through the chain 2 and through our hoop, finishing off our row. We're gonna chain 2 to start off our next row, and this will be our last row of increases. And with this row, we're gonna increase every 2 stitches. So every 3rd stitch will be an increase stitch. So we're gonna go ahead and do our double crochet here at the base of our chain 2. And we're gonna do 2 single double crochets in the next 2 stitches. One, 2, and our 3rd stitch is an increase stitch, which is 2 double crochets in this stitch. Our next 2 stitches are just going to be 1 double crochet in each stitch. Now an increase. So now we're going to do a double crochet in this stitch, just 1, now another one in the next stitch, which is 2 singles, and an increase for every 2 stitches. So we're going to go 1, 2, increase the next stitch. One, two, increase on the next stitch. We're going to do this all the way around. I can see that I've got 3 stitches left here before my row is ended, so I'm going to do 1, 2, and my 3rd stitch is ending on an increase, which is what we want. We've got our chain 2 here. I'm going to take my hook, slide it through the top stitch of that chain 2, grab my yarn, pull it through again. And there we have finished our 4th row, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is the crown of our hat. I am satisfied with how big the crown is for this hat. So now, from this point on, I no longer am going to increase in my rows. If you want the crown of your hat to be bigger, you'll do another row of increase, but this one you will do an increase every 4th stitch. So you'll go single, 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 increase, single, 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 increase, and so on all the way around your row. So now I am going to take and I am going to chain 2, and at the base of my chain 2, add a double crochet. From this point on, I will just be doing 1 double crochet in each stitch all the way around. I've finished my row. Here's my chain 2. I'm going to take my hook, go through the top of my chain 2, grab my yarn, pull it through, and pull it through again, finishing off my row. I'm going to chain 2 again. And from here on out, I will just be doing 1 double crochet in each stitch in every row until I've gotten the length of my hat that I want it to be. And in the hat that I made last night, I had a total of 12 rows from the top all the way to the bottom. And so I am thinking that I'm gonna do another 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, yep, 7 more rows, and I will be done with this hat. Alrighty, my hat is done, and I ended up doing a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 rows. So we've ended our row here. I've got my hoop. I'm gonna take my scissors and cut off some of this extra yarn, and I'm gonna take and just pull the yarn through my hoop. And I'm gonna pull the yarn tail, tighten it up. Now taking our yarn needle, thread my yarn in the needle. I'm gonna turn my hat inside out. I'm gonna take and just sew this tail into my stitches here. And there's no particular way to do it. You just kind of want to hide it so it doesn't show and it's not gonna come unraveled. So I've sewn it into the bottom edge here. I'm gonna snip off my extra yarn. And with our tail here in the top of our hat, we're gonna do the same thing. And I'm gonna take and just sew it around the inside here of these stitches. Just sew it on in there. Pull it through, and look at there, you've got a nice clean edge. I'm gonna turn it right side in, and there you have our hat. We are done. This yarn is absolutely gorgeous. I love this. I got this yarn at Michael's on sale a couple weeks ago when I did my haul, and all that yarn that you see in that haul was meant for this purpose of these hats that are going to City of Hope. I hope this tutorial helped you guys see that it really isn't that hard. I hope I did a pretty good job of explaining how to make these hats. I love making hats. I love crocheting in general anyway. It's something that relaxes me at night when I'm sitting down watching TV or just laying in bed unwinding for the night. So I challenge you all to try and make a hat and follow along with my tutorial if you've never made one before, and at least just try, because I guarantee you once you make your first hat, you're gonna wanna make more. That's all I have for you for today for this tutorial on how to crochet a basic beanie using a double crochet stitch. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, stick around a while by clicking that red button for more crafting on a budget, more everything on a budget videos to come. And if you click it again when the bell appears, YouTube will notify you when I'm uploading a new video. You can also follow me on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and Google+. You can find those links in the description box below. Just click on those links, click follow, and you'll also be notified through social media when I'm uploading a new video or just doing something fun. You can also find my P.O. box in the description box below as well if you're interested in donating a hat to help Kayla and I achieve our goal of 500 hats that we'd like to donate to City of Hope for all of those men, women, and children that are battling cancer. I will leave the link to that video if you'd like more information in the description box below as well. Until next time, everybody, I hope you have a fantastic day. Happy crafting on a budget, and bye for now, everybody.